for it. Get him, Nani. Don't let him out. Here you go. Good job, Quee. That's another buck. Healthy buck.
Hey guys, I just got back from my fishing trip to Michigan. I went up for the salmon run and to get in on some of the steelhead fishing there that they have around the Tippy Dam area. It's a great fishing spot if you plan on getting into some salmon fishing. I'm hoping I can help you out. I've put in a ton of hours getting ready for this trip. I'm always afraid I'm going to get the incorrect gear, wrong techniques, anything that's going to make my trip a bust. So I try to avoid that, kind of panic, end up doing ridiculous hours of research. So my plan here is, while this information is still fresh in my head, I'm wanting to share it with you guys. I'm going to start out with my rod selection. I looked at a number of rods, checked out, the one I almost got was the Lemmy Glass Redline series. Sleek looking pole, all black. I think it had a lot of carbon on it. And then I had the HMX here, medium heavy rod. Both the rods I was looking at were medium heavy. You need a ton of backbone for these fish. They will spool you quickly. I thought that was kind of not going to be the case, but I'm glad I went ahead with the medium heavy because they definitely did. But the pole I ended up going with was the HMX, Fenwick HMX. The reason I went with this over the Lemmy Glass, it had great reviews also, but I just thought this one looked a little more classy. I like the cork handle design. Just kind of reminds me of the whole stream fishing scenario and look. I just like it. So I went with that for my rod. Very nice pole. Brought in a lot of big keens with this thing. It held up great. Fought them in. Landed a lot of fish. And then for my reel, I went with the Okuma 55S Trio. This reel is very nice. I've had a lot of expensive reels, a lot of bait casters, and these, and this one didn't break the bank. It was only, I think, around 80 bucks, but it performs great. It is, I believe, a 10 bearing spinning reel. And it has a large capacity. You want a large capacity when fishing for keens because, like I said, they will take a lot of line. I fought one fish, especially if you don't hook them correctly. If they don't bite it and you accidentally snag one. If they're snagged on the sides, I had one run probably 100 yards out, and luckily I had the big spool. So you want that, and this reel is very lightweight. It's not big and bulky. It's all that technology and a real sleek design. So I like this reel a lot. It performs like any nice reel I've ever had. I'm very happy with it. And then for my actual setup for fishing, I started with a 40-pound Power Pro braid. And then I have on here Power Pro is my backing, 40-pound braid, and then I've got these ball bearing swivels. You want a really good swivel. These are size 4 because those fish are going to do about anything to get off of your line. They're going to flop around, twist, spin, really get you all twisted up. So you want a good swivel on there. And then I follow that with, this is optional, these clips here. It's nothing that you have to have. I put it on there so I could switch out quickly my leaders, because you don't want to be tying up a bunch of leaders while you're fishing on the riverbank. It's just not easy. But after that, I've got my leader, and get that unhooked here. I went with about 4 to 5 feet on my leader, and one of my favorite methods, so I'm going to discuss 3 with you guys that I used, just quickly kind of go over them, was a spoon. And you have to be careful and make sure treble hook is legal in the area you're fishing. Treble was illegal where I was, except for if you have a manufactured lure with one already on there, then that's legal, as long as it's no bigger than 3/8 from the point to the shank of the hook. But this was my favorite method, and with all 3 methods that I'm going to share, the basic technique is you cast out at about 11 o'clock and drift down to about 2 o'clock, because then you're going to be coming to the bank, contact with branches and other fishermen that may be downstream from you, and you want to avoid as many tangles as possible. But that's the method. You cast out 11 to 2 real as slow as you can to keep the bow out of your line, and that allows it to drop down into the strike zone and get you right in there for the kings. And this was my favorite method. The other method I used, the one I started out with and eventually swapped out to the spoon, was this guy here. It is a 2/0 hook. A lot of guys were using 1/0, 2/0. 2/0 was legal in my area, so I went with it. I try to go with as big a hook as I can without it being too noticeable for them to bite. And this worked out great. It held on to them. And then with this leader, basically I put split shot down my line of my 4 to 5 foot leader about every 10 inches. And all the way to my loop that I tie on for that quick swap out along the bank. Although with this one method here, it's a little different, because what I like to do is actually put my 15-gram Raven fast float above my swivel, because this is 40-pound braid. It's most likely not going to break here, and I don't want to just be losing money in the river. So I do it this way on this method, just so the only thing I'm losing are some split shots and a hook if my leader breaks. So I do it that way, and I use these 15-gram Ravens, the fast floats, or fast drifts, I think is what they're called, because you can adjust them, but unlike a slip bobber, they're fixed by these little rubber pieces that you cut off of a cord that they send you with the bobbers, and you feed your line through that and then put it onto the spikes of the bobber here. And what this does is, when you're fishing in swift current situations, it allows you to cast out and have your line sink down into the strike zone quickly, rather than waiting on the line to pull through your traditional slip bobbers. If you're ever out like bluegill, crappie fishing, in my experience I've had to sit there sometimes and jig a little bit or wait for that line to pull down through the bobber. Just that little bit of friction delays it to where if you're in a swift current, by the time you actually get down the strike zone, you're going to be ready to reel out. So that's what I do, and then, like I said, I taper those split shots, and then when I get down to my hook, I like to use what's called an egg loop knot. What this allows you to do is hold on to your bait a lot better, because you may be using skein if you're using like real eggs to fish with, which we tried that as well. What we ended up doing was going with yarn, because it even lasts longer than that. But what this knot does is it goes through the eye of your hook, and you just push your main leader up through that eye of that hook, and it gives you a loop here. So you just push that up through there, and you can take your skein or your yarn, and you put it in there and just pull your string, and you've got your bait and you're ready to go. It's going to stay on there for a long time. You don't have to worry about it. This method works great also if you're a big cat fisherman and use chicken liver. This will hold your livers on really well. Wish I would have discovered this way sooner. But I'll be posting a video of all these knots that I'm sharing with you guys and techniques shortly after this video. That way, if you want to learn all these knots and all that, those will be on there, especially this loop knot here, because you want something that's good and strong and going to displace all the tension of the line correctly. That way you're not snapping leaders if you go with that easy hookup scenario. It's just way easier when you're out there in the current fishing than to hang out and just retie and lose all that fishing time. And then the final method I'm going to show you guys is, this was for the Steelhead. So you have a bead, same leader, about 4 or 5 feet, whatever. Some people are using 6 or 7. Longer the pole, you could probably go longer. But you have a bead and your hook, and this bead just slides on your line, and there's a little rubber, almost like a toothpick looking piece of rubber that you shove in here, and you pull your egg, or your imitation egg, your bead down onto that rubber till it's tight, and just cut the rest of the rubber off. And you want your hook to be about 3 finger widths down from your egg. And what this does is, when the fish strike at this and they pull, and you counter with your hook set, it basically pulls it right into their lip. And this is a size 4 hook, and like I said, with this method and the hook size, make sure you're legal in your area. Check the guidebooks, read up, and make sure. That's the one bit of information I can't give you for sure, because that stuff changes every year, and locations, the rules change in each location. So yeah, if you want to learn all these knots and techniques in more depth, be looking for that video. And also, along with this leader for the trout that I was showing you, the Steelhead Rainbow, you want to be able to sink down quick, because the rainbow trout, Steelhead, they hang out downstream, just right behind the salmon in the deeper holes. So right off the gravel bed, it'll sink down a little, and that's where they're hanging out. So I prefabbed up some of these guys to have on the riverside with me. It's a 3/8 sinker, and most time I find that 3/8, half inch, or 3/8 and half ounce typically does a job to get me the fish I need and the depth that I need. But I got these clips on here, so when I hook up my leader with my bead and all that, I can clip this guy right here onto my bearing swivel, and that allows, when I cast out that 11-2, it allows my line to sink down behind those salmon and drop into that deep hole. And when you drop down in there, they see that egg roll in. That's what they're sitting there feeding on all day long, so they're going to eat that up. But that pretty much does it for the 3 fishing methods that I was going to show you. I also have the waders that I went with. I researched many different options on waders. The cheaper ones, people complain that they crack in the built-on boots. So I knew I wanted to go with like the classier looking wader and the better built wader. But to my surprise, I found a pair of Hodgman waders. From the results of my research, it looks like they're one of the leaders actually in waders, or a really good known name. And I found the Hodgman H3 waders. They're only about $100 surprisingly, but they're pretty classy looking. They have nice color scheme, I think, and they have a nice pocket in the front for your leaders or fishing gear, and then they have an internal pocket for your cell phone or anything that you want to keep dry. But these waders, they also have a belt, which I like because it doesn't look like you're wearing a trash bag. They actually taper to your body, and they look pretty nice. And then the big seller on these for me, they have an anatomically correct foot. So your boots fit really nice, they're comfortable, you can wear these for long periods of time, and they're great for me. If you plan on using these as a full season wader, another feature they have is they've got a zipper in here where you can zip in a liner that's sold separately, these waders. And then I didn't go with the Hodgman boot because I found an alternative that was built very nice. They match the waders pretty good, and they were pretty cheap. They were only 50 bucks for these, and they held up great. I'm going to be using these for a lot of years, I can tell. But you want to be careful when you're picking out your wader boots, because some of them have a rubber sole, like what I got, and some of them have a felt sole. And the felt sole, it's said to grip up a little better on slick rock. I didn't have a problem with these, it was fine. But the reason I wanted to go with the rubber sole is they hold up longer, and you're going to be... I like to use my boots more than 1 year or 2, or I don't know how long the felt ones last, but I hear these last longer. But so I wanted these to last, and also the felt ones, the felt soles are illegal in a lot of places because they hold on to sediment from the rivers, and you get cross-contamination from stream to stream, and they don't want that. So in a lot of places the felt's illegal. And for me, these, I never slipped with these. They held up great. I can fish anywhere I want with these. So be careful with your boots. Make sure you know what you're getting when you order so that you get what you need. And these Hodgman waders, they fit great. So get the size that you need, because they're true fit. I'm really pleased with them. They look great and they performed well. And then the only other couple things you guys may want is a good net. I think I ended up with a 36-inch net with one flat side. That way I can get it square down onto the bottom of the river. That way your fish doesn't sneak out around the hourglass of the round net coming up. So get you a big net, and if you're going to keep your fish, process your fish, get you a fish pad. It's a quick, humane way to put your fish out. And then make sure you do cut the gills on both sides and put them on a stringer and back out into the river, because that'll keep your fish cool. It's going to bleed them, get the blood out. You'll have good tasting fresh meat. And if you want to preserve your skein, that way you can fish with the roe later on, you're going to want to have the blood out of your skein. A lot of guys will even go in and once they pull the skein out of the fish, will go in and cut the little vein that runs through them and squeeze the blood out of that with like a plastic spoon or something. Because if you have blood in your eggs, they just don't last as long. You can make your eggs last a long time using the fire cure. I have that around here somewhere, the fire cure that I bought, but I don't have it to show you guys right now. But I'm going to post links to all the things that I'm showing you today. That way, if you like any of this stuff, you can find it easily. And but like I was saying, your bait just lasts a lot longer if you get all the blood out of it. So I think that about wraps it up. I'm going to be posting another video of all these knots. That way, if you're interested in the techniques I showed you, you'll have access to that info on the knots. And I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.